Brother got my fiancée pregnant before our wedding. Now my family wants me to forgive them, but I told them to fuck off and moved away. It's as bizarre as it sounds, and this will be a lengthy narrative. There's a lot to cover here, but I'll do my best to keep it brief. I need to rant because it's so ridiculous, regardless of whether anyone finds this funny or not. Furthermore, I won't sugarcoat anything, but I will leave out any details that would help someone who isn't familiar with the situation identify me. I'm 32 years old, and I was engaged to my partner of 5 years until a few months ago. We'll refer to her as Sarah. Mike, my 29-year-old younger brother, has always been the family's golden child. I need to give you some information on my family and how we got to this point in order for you to fully understand the seriousness of this betrayal and why it has affected me so deeply. From our parents' perspective, Mike could never do anything wrong as I was growing up, but I was constantly reprimanded and punished for small transgressions. This was clear and fierce, not your typical sibling rivalry or covert partiality. I would be blamed if Mike broke stuff. If I got into a fight with him, I would be grounded. He would receive a new video game console if we both had straight A's, while I would receive a pat on the back and a reminder to keep up the good work. Our parents, Linda and Tom, were always defending their behavior. The constant barrage of false standards and gaslighting made me feel worthless and hated in my own home. Mike's younger, he needs more attention. You're the older one, you should know better, and Mike's just more sensitive, we have to be careful with him. The predilection became more apparent as we got older. My parents hardly noticed when I was accepted on a partial scholarship to a reputable college. But when Mike decided to go to community college, they bought him a car to drive and threw him a big party. I had been riding my bike 5 miles each way to my part-time work for years, but that didn't matter. In order to escape the poisonous atmosphere at home, I left as soon as I could. By taking out loans and working 2 jobs, I was able to pay for college. Mike, meanwhile, left school after just 1 semester, saying he wasn't cut out for college. Our parents fully supported his choice, praising him for knowing himself and not conforming to societal expectations. They even provided funding for his series of unsuccessful business ventures in the years that followed. No matter how far I attempted to pull myself apart from my family, they always managed to get me back. A nightmare of subtle jabs and not-so-subtle analogies plagued holiday dinners. "Oh, you're still working at that entry-level job? Well, Mike is thinking of starting a new company. He's really entrepreneurial." It didn't matter that Mike was spending down our parents' retirement savings while I was building a stable career. Mike was still my brother, so I tried to maintain our friendship despite everything, but it was always one-sided. If I reached out and tried to connect, he would either ignore me or find a way to turn the conversation into a game he could win. If I started dating someone, he would undoubtedly be in a serious relationship. And if I got promoted, he would suddenly have a big opportunity coming up. While trying to get back together with Mike, I met Sarah, a friend of one of his brief girlfriends, and we clicked right away. She was brilliant, funny, kind, and gorgeously beautiful, and we started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt really content and appreciated. Mike, on the other hand, became very interested in my life and kept asking about Sarah, wanting to know everything about her. At the time, I was just relieved that he seemed to care about things in my life. In retrospect, I should have recognized the warning signs. My parents, of course, were not happy, making sarcastic comments about Sarah being out of my league and asking what she saw in me. After a year of dating, Sarah and I moved in together, and it was great. We both had good jobs, traveled, and talked about the future, and I started to think that maybe, just maybe, I could have the life I had always wanted: a good job, a loving partner, and maybe someday kids. I proposed to Sarah on our 4th anniversary, and it was quite simple, just a simple dinner at home and a heartfelt speech, and I was thrilled when she said yes. We planned to have a lengthy engagement and spend our time planning the wedding. We weren't in a rush. We had our entire lives ahead of us, or so I thought. My father grunted and muttered, "Good luck with that," before turning back to the television. Mike had the strangest reaction, congratulating us, but there was something odd about his smile, almost predatory. At the time, I dismissed it, attributing it to my own fears. My mother, on the other hand, put on a fake smile and said, "Oh, how nice," in a tone that suggested it was anything. We hadn't seen each other as much as we used to, but I thought it was just a phase. Every partnership goes through rough patches, right? Looking back, I should have seen the signs. Sarah became aloof, constantly on her phone, smiling at texts from people she quickly brushed off as business friends, and she started going out more with her friends, arriving home late and smelling of wine and cologne. However, I didn't think she might be cheating, let alone with my own brother. The next year was a time of wedding preparations and job stress. Around 4 months ago, Sarah started acting strangely. She was irritable, moody, and always sick. I was thrilled that she might be pregnant. We hadn't tried, but we had talked about the possibility of having kids in the future, so I started thinking about how I could support her, coming up with baby names and nursery colors. One night, she sat me down with tears in her eyes and told me that she was pregnant, but it wasn't mine. Our busy schedules had prevented us from being intimate for a while, but I never imagined she would cheat on me. When I asked her who the father was, she broke down and muttered, "It's Mike." My entire world fell apart at that moment. Everything I believed I knew and everything I had built my life upon fell apart. I was unable to think or breathe, and all I could feel was a crippling sense of betrayal and loss. Apparently, it started at our engagement party, when Mike had approached her and told her that she was making a mistake by marrying me. Playing on her fears, he told her she could do better and that he could give her everything I couldn't. Sarah tried to explain, her words coming out quickly between sobs. It wasn't a one-time event. They'd been having an affair for months. Sarah begged me to forgive her, saying it was an error and that she loved me, but all I could think about was the numerous times she had lied to me and slept with my brother while wearing the ring I had given her. That night, I threw Sarah out because I couldn't bear to look at her or be in the same room as the woman who had completely lied to me. Mike tried to play it casual at first, saying it was just a drunken mistake and had no meaning, but when I questioned him, he became defensive and said, "Well, maybe if you'd been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me?" I was furious, so I got into my car and drove to his apartment, determined to do something that would make him regret what he said. I'm not sure what I was planning to do, but when I got there, our parents were already there. Mike apparently called them first, telling them a story about how Sarah had seduced him and how sorry he was, and they believed him, as they always do. My father just stood there with his arms crossed, looking disappointed in me, but not in his beloved Mike. I tried to explain what had really happened, but they wouldn't listen, and they insisted that I needed to forgive Mike and help Sarah through her pregnancy because family comes first. I exploded. I told them how I felt about their twisted sense of devotion, how they'd always favored Mike over me, and how they'd never stood by me or taken my side. I told Mike that he was dead and no longer my brother, and I told my parents that they could have the son they'd always wanted because they didn't have me. I stormed off, ignoring their cries and pleas. When I finally arrived home, I found dozens of missed calls and messages, Sarah pleading for another chance, Mike alternating between apologies and accusations, but most of them came from my parents, who insisted that I mature and make amends. I ignored them all, hardly eating or sleeping, and I called in sick to work, using up all of my vacation days because I couldn't face anyone or bear the thought of explaining what had happened. Instead, I sat in my apartment, going over every detail of my relationship with Sarah and Mike, trying to determine where I went wrong. In order to cope with all of this, I've moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, and started treatment, but my family isn't going away. They've started to show up at my office, trying to ambush me and force a reconciliation. My mother confronts me in the parking lot, complaining that I'm tearing the family apart. My father left harsh voicemails telling me to man up and forgive Mike. They've sent flying monkeys dressed as extended family to guilt trip me into forgiving Mike, and now aunts, uncles, and cousins I haven't spoken to in years are calling to tell me how important family is and that I should let the past be the past. Mike himself has tried to approach me multiple times, but I've avoided him so far. They seem to be living in a different reality where Mike and Sarah made a minor error instead of a major one. Sarah told me yesterday that she is keeping the baby and plans to co-parent with Mike. And, guess what? My parents are thrilled to be grandparents and have forgotten the situation and the hurtful comments they used to make when Sarah was with me. I am at my wit's end. Part of me wants to cut all ties and start over somewhere else, maybe moving to another state, changing my identity, and creating a new life where no one knows about this mess. But another part of me is so outraged that I want to stay and fight, to show them how twisted up the situation is. The letter was filled with explanations and apologies, including how she and Mike discovered real love via this horrible scenario. She even had the oddity to imply that she hoped we could all become friends in the end for the sake of the child. The betrayal has affected every part of my life, and I can't handle being by myself with my thoughts. I haven't even thought about dating again because I'm afraid of trusting someone like that. I've also lost friends because of this, people who think I should take the high road and get back together with my family, as if I'm a bad person for not playing happy families with the people who have hurt me the most. My parents have started talking about how I should be involved in the child's life and how I will become an uncle, and the thought of Sarah and Mike raising a child together, a child that should have been mine, is like a constant stab in my gut. I know cognitively that the child is innocent in all of this. That its parents are dishonest, cheating scumbags. but I can't bring myself to feel good about the baby's existence. The idea makes me feel physically ill. How can I look at this child and not see the ultimate symbol of my brother's betrayal? I'm not sure what I hope to gain from sharing this, but writing it down has been cathartic in a way. I'm not sure what I hope to gain: validation, guidance, or just the opportunity to scream into the void and have someone, anybody, hear me. So, Reddit, I guess my question is, am I the idiot for refusing to forgive my brother and ex-fiancé? Am I wrong to want to lose relations with my family over this? Any help on how to proceed would be greatly appreciated, as I now feel like I'm drowning in a sea of treachery and gaslighting. I apologize for the lengthy post. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Edit. I'm amazed by the response, and it will take me some time to get through all of the comments, but I wanted to address a few common questions. Holy God, this went viral overnight. Thank you all for your support and guidance. 1. I have indeed spoken with a lawyer and am in the process of obtaining a restraining order against my relatives. 2. Although it's not the child's fault, I don't plan on interacting with the infant in any way, yet I can't become engaged without going insane. 3. To individuals who have asked me about my employment, I have previously discussed the matter with HR, and they are understanding and helpful. They have increased front desk security and given me the opportunity to work from home more often, and I appreciate their understanding. 4. Many of you have asked if I have considered moving to another city or state, and I am definitely contemplating it. My company has offices in a number of other places, so a move would be feasible, and I am weighing the benefits and drawbacks. I have no reason to suppose that the child is not Mike's, and even if it were mine, I doubt I could ever look at that child without thinking about this. 5. To those who are recommending a DNA test, Sarah admitted to the affair, and the time frame is congruent. 6. It's heartbreaking to see how common this kind of betrayal is, but it's also oddly reassuring to know that I'm not alone. I've been overwhelmed by the number of individuals who have experienced similar things. Thank you everyone for sharing and being vulnerable. 7. In response to the person who asked if I had thought of filing a lawsuit against Mike for alienation of affection, I investigated the matter, but it is not recognized in my state, and even if it were, I don't believe I currently have the stamina to fight a court battle. 8. Mike's behavior has been described as narcissistic by a number of people. I've begun reading about narcissistic personality disorder, and a lot of it makes sense. It helps me understand, but it doesn't justify some of his actions. 9. People who have asked about Sarah's family are as shocked and horrified as one might expect, and they have stopped talking to her and have contacted me to offer their support, which is a small consolation, but I appreciate it. To the person who asked if I had thought about having children of my own someday, I must admit that this whole experience has made me question if I want a family at all, but I'm attempting to avoid making any big decisions until I've had a chance to think things through. I may not be able to respond to every comment, but know that I read them all and they are helping me feel less alone in this. Thank you again, Reddit. You have helped more than you realize. Your support and advice have given me a lot to think about, and they have truly been a lifeline during this difficult time. I will keep you updated if anything significant happens, but for now, my focus is on getting better and moving forward. Update. Hi Reddit, it's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and it's been quite the roller coaster. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone for your tremendous support and suggestions. I never thought my post would go so viral, and reading through all of your comments has been both distressing and strangely comforting. It's alarming how common this kind of deception is. The past few weeks have been difficult, to put it mildly. You recall that I was working on getting a restraining order? Well, that turned into a major ordeal. My lawyer filed the paperwork, and we scheduled a hearing. I thought it would be easy, considering the evidence and the continuous harassment, but I was wrong. Fortunately, the judge didn't buy it, and she issued the restraining order against Mike and my parents only after my mother broke down in tears in court and my father glared at me as if I had committed murder. My parents brought their own lawyer to the court, a fancy guy in an expensive suit who probably charges more per hour than I do in a week. They tried to paint me as the crazy one, saying that I was tearing the family apart over a simple misunderstanding, as if Mike had tripped and fell into my fiancée. I'd be lying if I said that his words didn't shake me, but at least I have some legal protection. Mike tried to approach me as we were leaving the courthouse, but my lawyer intervened and reminded him of the recently issued restraining order. Mike simply sneered and said, "This wasn't over, and I couldn't hide behind a piece of paper forever." The work situation has been another nightmare. Last week, I was in a meeting with a customer when my assistant informed me that my mother was in the lobby and making a noise. It turned out that she had brought a photo album and was trying to show my coworkers pictures of Mike and me as babies while complaining about how close her boys used to be. I excused myself from the meeting and went down to the lobby, where I found my mother surrounded by several uneasy-looking coworkers, and she was in the middle of telling a story about how Mike and I used to bathe together when we were toddlers. Her expression was as if I had slapped her, but after everything they had put me through, I couldn't bring myself to care. Security let her out, and I had to spend the next hour doing damage control with my employer and coworkers. Luckily, most of them understood, but I could tell some were wondering what kind of drama I was bringing into the office. She tried to rush towards me when she saw me, talking about a baby shower, but I interrupted her and told her she had to leave immediately or I would call the police and have her removed for restraining order violation. I was trying to vent my frustration on the punching bag last Saturday, but I was so focused on my training that I didn't notice anyone else was coming until I heard his voice. I turned around and saw Mike, smirking at me as if he hadn't just broken the restraining order, talking loudly enough for everyone to hear. I told him to leave before I called the police, but he laughed and said he would tell them how I had threatened him and Sarah. I lost it at that point. I swiped at him, first hitting his jaw, then lunging at me, and we ended up on the floor, trading blows like children again, but this time there were no parents to separate us. No one telling me to be the bigger person and let Mike win. I got in a couple nice hits before the gym staff separated us, and Mike's nose was bleeding, and I could feel my own swelling shut. We were both screaming, trying to get away and get back at each other, and the gym manager's threat to call the police eventually made me stoop. I was driving home, still trembling from adrenaline, when I got a call from an unknown number, so I picked it up against my better judgment. Sarah was screaming at me about how I had broken Mike's nose and that he might need surgery, and I couldn't help but laugh. I apologized if I had offended her little boyfriend, with whom she had been sleeping behind my back for several months. She started crying, complaining about how nervous she was, how the baby could sense her pain, and how selfish I could be. At this point, I'll take what I can. The aftermath of the fight was severe. The news had gone viral in our social circle. My phone was inundated with texts from friends and family, some of whom were supporting me and others of whom were criticizing me for attacking my poor defenseless brother. Sarah's parents called me again, expressing their disapproval of their daughter and their support for me. The restraining order does not seem adequate anymore. Mike has demonstrated his willingness to violate it, and I'm concerned about what he'll do next. The legal fallout has been a nightmare. My lawyer called me the day after the gym incident. Mike apparently filed assault accusations against me. I recounted what had happened, how Mike had violated the restraining order and provoked me. My lawyer groaned and said we'd fight it, but it might be a tough struggle considering that I threw the first punch. We are in the process of bringing our own charges against Mike for breaking the restraining order. My lawyer is convinced that this will benefit our case, but nothing is guaranteed. I've had to provide police statements, show them injuries on my face and knuckles, and justify defending myself against my own brother, which is humiliating. Mike and I have been banned from the gym for life. I can't blame them, but it's unfortunate that the gym was one of the few places where I felt like I could let out some of my frustration in a healthy manner. I've always been close to my cousin Amy, who called me the other day and has been under a lot of pressure from her family to support me, but she's standing her ground. She told me what's been going on behind the scenes, and it seems like my parents have been telling everyone that I'm having a mental breakdown, saying that Sarah and Mike started dating after Sarah and I broke up, and that I'm just jealous and can't let go. Amy says that most of the family is not convinced, but some are, and it's annoying to know that they're spreading false information about me while I'm trying to recover. Work has been difficult, to put it mildly. After the argument with Mike and the incident with my mother in the lobby, which went viral on local social media, I can feel my coworkers are nervous around me. Earlier this week, my manager called me into his office and said he valued me as an employee and understood that I was going through a difficult time. He then dropped the bombshell. He thought it would be best if I took a leave of absence until things calmed down. He suggested we call it a personal sabbatical, paid, of course. I wanted to argue, to tell him that work is the only thing keeping me sane at the moment, but I knew the decision had already been made, so I agreed, thanked him for his understanding, and started packing up my office. I'd be lying if I said none of this was affecting me, but I've started taking long nighttime drives to get out of my apartment, and occasionally I find myself parked outside my old place, the one I lived with Sarah, wondering how my life got so messed up. I was leaving when I heard two of my coworkers talking about how my brother got my fiancée pregnant, and I slammed my office door louder than necessary as I left, taking some small pleasure in watching them jump. During all of this chaos, I got support from an unexpected source, Emma, Sarah's younger sister, who reached out to me on social media to apologize for her sister's behavior and offer her support. I was initially skeptical, But after talking to Emma, I realized that she is just as disgusted by Sarah's behavior as I am. Emma has been telling me about what's going on in Sarah and Mike's lives, claiming that she has been trying to play the victim, crying to anyone who would listen about how she never meant to hurt anyone, and that she and Mike are soulmates who found each other against all odds. It makes me sick to my stomach, but I appreciate Emma keeping me updated because information is power, even if it is knowledge I would rather not have. Social media has been a nightmare. I've always been a pretty private person, but this incident has thrust me into the spotlight. On a local Facebook page, someone, likely one of Mike's friends, posted about our gym feud. The post didn't name us, but it detailed the incident in enough detail for anyone who knows us to figure it out. The comment section turned into a battlefield, with some people defending me, saying Mike got what he deserved, and others calling me unstable and saying I should be locked up. I made the grave mistake of reading some of the comments one night after drinking too much, and I ended up throwing my phone across the room so hard that the screen cracked. Since then, I've deleted most of my social media accounts because I can't handle the constant notifications and messages from people I haven't spoken to in years. I haven't made any final decisions yet, but the idea of a fresh start is getting more and more alluring. I've started looking for internal moves, and there's a promising opportunity in our Seattle office. It's not ideal. I've never been a fan of constant rain, but at this point, I'd move to the moon to avoid all of this turmoil. New city, new apartment, new life, where no one recognizes me as the guy whose brother cheated on his fiancée. Since the restraining order was granted, my parents have been unusually quiet. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to find a new way to re-enter my life. Sarah has been telling everyone about her pregnancy, and Emma tells me that she has been sharing constant updates on social media, ultrasound photos, belly shots, and so forth, with a message about how blessed she and Mike are and how excited they are to start a family. Every new piece of information feels like a fresh wound, rekindling the pain just when I thought I was starting to heal. That is the current situation. I thought my life couldn't get any worse 2 weeks ago, but it has. I'm still upset and hurt, but I'm also tired of defending myself. I guess this is more of a cry into thin air than an update. Reddit. I'm not sure what I'm asking for, advice, sympathy, or a time machine that will never let me introduce Sarah to my brother. I'll try to keep you all updated though, because your support has meant more to me than you can imagine. It's good to be reminded that there are still good people in the world, even when it seems like everything is full of deceit and betrayal. Last update. Greetings, Reddit. 1 week has passed since my last update, and I am here with what I hope will be my last post about this entire catastrophe. I want to start by expressing my gratitude to everyone for their support and advice along this trip. Your posts have been a lifeline during my darkest moments.